Hi, and welcome back to the English Talk community, the podcast where we help you improve your English with real stories, useful tips, and simple natural practice. I'm Emma, and I'm so glad you're here today. Let me start with a quick question. Be honest with yourself. Do you feel like you're too busy to practice English every day? Maybe your schedule is full from the moment you wake up until the moment you go to sleep. You've got work, family, maybe school, maybe a long commute, errands, responsibilities. By the time you finally get a few minutes to yourself, you're probably too tired to open a book or watch a full lesson in English. If that sounds familiar, you're definitely not alone. So many English learners tell me the same thing. I want to improve, but I just don't have time. Or, I can't follow a strict routine. And here's the truth. I get it. Life is full. Not everyone can sit down for an hour every day with a notebook and a grammar guide. And the good news is, you don't have to. This episode is for you if you've ever felt like your day is too full to include English. If you've ever wished there were a way to make real progress without needing to clear your schedule. And more importantly, if you've ever wondered how other people do it, how people with jobs, kids, studies, or multiple responsibilities still manage to build English into their daily lives. Because the truth is, you can absolutely practice English every day, even if you're busy. You just need a different way of thinking about practice. You don't need hours. You don't need a quiet room. You don't even need to be sitting down. What you need is intention and a little creativity. Today, we're going to talk about exactly that. I'm going to share real stories from learners around the world who found clever and simple ways to fit English into their routines. They're not experts or professionals. They're regular people, just like you, with real lives and real schedules. Some of them have demanding jobs. Others are raising kids. Some work nights. Some travel a lot. But they all found a way to make English part of their day, without stress and without needing extra time. We'll also talk about how you can do the same. I'll give you clear, practical ideas that you can apply right away, even today. We'll talk about small habits, little moments, and easy tricks that help you stay connected to English without feeling overwhelmed. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is consistency. Just a little bit every day. That's where the magic happens. Now, before we dive into the first story, I want to ask you a few more questions, and I want you to really think about them. You don't need to answer out loud. Just reflect. What's your current routine like? When you wake up in the morning, what's the first thing you do? Do you look at your phone? Do you get ready quickly and rush out the door? Do you listen to anything on your way to work or school? And what about during the day? Do you have any moments when your hands are busy but your mind is free? Like when you're doing chores, taking a walk, waiting in line, or sitting in traffic? Do you find yourself scrolling on your phone during little breaks, maybe between meetings or while cooking or during lunch? What do you usually listen to, read, or watch throughout your week? Is it always in your first language, or do you sometimes switch to English? These are not just random questions. These are the moments that matter, the small gaps that are already part of your life. And here's the thing. You don't need to create extra time for English. You can use the time you already have. It's a mindset shift. Instead of thinking, I don't have time to study English, try asking, where can I fit English into the time I already use for something else? That small change in thinking can lead to a big difference in results. And I want you to know, right from the start, that this is not about being perfect. It's not about speaking like a native or memorizing long lists of words or mastering complex grammar. That's not the goal here. The real goal is progress, confidence, the ability to express yourself in a simple, natural way, the freedom to understand and be understood. And that kind of growth doesn't require hours. It just needs repetition, attention, and a bit of creativity every single day. So even if you're listening right now while walking to the store, or folding laundry, or cooking dinner, you're already practicing. You're already giving your brain time to listen, to absorb, to build a rhythm with the language. And that's a win. As we move through today's episode, I'll be sharing tips that come from real learners who face the same challenges you might be facing. These are not theories from textbooks. These are ideas tested in real life, in busy lives. But before we get into the stories, I want to invite you to take a moment and set a tiny goal for yourself. Nothing big, just something small that you can try today after this episode ends. Maybe it's listening to a short video in English during your break. Maybe it's saying one sentence in English out loud before bed. Maybe it's changing the language on your phone, or writing one message to yourself in English. That one small decision can be the start of a new habit. And remember, your English doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be used. Let's talk about why daily practice matters, even if it's just 5 minutes. I know that might sound too simple. You might be thinking, how can 5 minutes really help me improve my English? But the truth is, those 5 minutes, if used with purpose, can be powerful. Consistency beats intensity every single time. Think about how we build any habit. We don't usually make a huge change all at once. Real, lasting change usually comes from small steps. It's the same with learning a language. One of the biggest mistakes English learners make is thinking they need to study for an hour or more every time they sit down. When they can't find the time, they do nothing. And over time, nothing becomes the habit. But when you focus on small, daily actions, you create momentum. You show up every day, even if it's just for a few minutes. That's what builds confidence. That's what builds fluency. Learning English isn't about cramming information once a week. It's about making English part of your daily life, a natural, regular part of who you are. Let me give you an example. Imagine 2 people. One studies English for 2 hours every Sunday. The other practices English for just 5 minutes every day. After a month, the person studying weekly has spent 8 hours in total. The daily learner has spent only about 2.5 hours. But here's the difference. The person who practices daily is thinking in English every day. Their brain stays in touch with the language. It doesn't forget. It builds connections. They keep their rhythm, their flow, their confidence. The truth is, 5 minutes of practice done every day is much more effective than hours of study done once in a while. It's like watering a plant. If you water it a little bit every day, it grows. But if you pour a whole bucket of water on it once a week and forget the rest of the time, it dries out. The same thing happens with your English. There's a concept called tiny habits. It was developed by behavior experts who study how people build routines that actually stick. The idea is simple. If a habit feels small and easy, you're more likely to do it and repeat it. Over time, these tiny actions become part of your identity. You stop thinking, I need to practice English. Instead, it becomes, I'm someone who practices English every day. Tiny habits work because they don't create resistance. You don't need to wait for the perfect moment. You don't need a quiet room or a full hour or a lesson plan. You just need one small moment. Maybe you listen to an English podcast while brushing your teeth. Maybe you read a short paragraph during your coffee break. Maybe you speak one sentence out loud while getting dressed. It doesn't need to be complicated. And here's the beautiful part. When you do something every day, even for just 5 minutes, you start to notice progress. You hear a word you remember from yesterday. You say a phrase with more ease. You recognize patterns in conversations. You feel more comfortable. That feeling creates motivation. And motivation leads to more action. This is how fluency grows, one small step at a time. You also reduce the pressure. When you think you need to study for a long time, you may feel stress. You avoid it. You say, "I'll do it tomorrow." But when your goal is only 5 minutes, it feels possible. And often, once you start, you end up doing more without even trying. You tell yourself, "I'll just watch one short video in English." And then you watch 2, or maybe 3. The key is just starting. That's the hardest part. Once you begin, the rest becomes easier. Another thing that happens with daily practice is that your brain gets used to switching into English mode quickly. The more often you do it, the faster you can think in English. And that's exactly what you want. You want to reduce the time between thinking and speaking. You want to feel more natural, more fluid, more spontaneous. Daily practice helps you do that, even in very short moments. So many learners think fluency is something far away, something they'll get after years of hard work. But actually, fluency is something you can feel in small ways every day. Like when you respond to a simple question without translating, or when you describe something out loud without stopping, or when you listen to something and understand the main idea. These little wins build your confidence. They remind you that you're improving. Think about how you learned your first language. It wasn't through big study sessions. It was through daily use, small words, repeated phrases, hearing the same expressions again and again. That's how language sticks. It's not magic. It's repetition. And repetition doesn't need to be boring. It just needs to be regular. If you're feeling stuck or frustrated or unsure of how to move forward with your English, ask yourself this. What's one small thing I can do today? Not tomorrow, not next week. Today, just 5 minutes. That's all it takes to start a new habit. And once that habit feels easy, you can build from there. The people who improve the most are not the ones with the perfect study plan. They're the ones who find a way to stay connected to the language every single day, no matter how busy life gets. That's the secret. Daily contact, daily input, daily practice. It's not about doing a lot. It's about doing something, anything, every day. And here's something else to remember. When you practice daily, you stay emotionally connected to your goal. You remember why you started. You stay excited. You build a stronger relationship with the language. It becomes part of your life, not just part of your to-do list. That's what makes the difference. So even if you only have 5 minutes today, use them. Don't wait for the perfect moment. The perfect moment is now. Use the English you have. Make it part of your day, your thoughts, your world. Let me tell you a story about Luca, an architect from Milan. He lives in a busy part of the city, not far from the Duomo, and like many professionals, his days are full. Meetings, emails, site visits, deadlines. From early morning to late evening, there's always something demanding his attention. For a long time, Luca had the same thought. Many of us have. I want to improve my English, but I just don't have the time. Every week he would tell himself he'd study when things calmed down. But the truth is, things never really calmed down. So English stayed in the background. Then one morning, while scrolling through his phone before getting out of bed, he came across a short video of someone explaining how listening to English for just 5 minutes a day could make a difference. It sounded almost too simple, but it stayed in his mind. That same day, while getting ready for work, he opened a podcast in English. He didn't fully understand everything, but he kept it playing while brushing his teeth, getting dressed, and packing his bag. It became background noise, but it was English, and it was something. That small action became a habit. Every morning, without fail, Luca would play an English podcast. Some days it was about design and architecture. Other days, it was casual conversation or news updates. The important thing was not the topic. It was the exposure. He was hearing English sounds every morning, without sitting down, without taking notes, just listening. After a few weeks, he noticed something. He was picking up words he had never studied. Expressions like, on the same page, tight schedule, or run ideas by someone. He started understanding the rhythm of natural English speech, the way native speakers pause or emphasize certain words. And even more important, he didn't feel stressed about it. He wasn't trying to be perfect. He was just getting used to the language, like someone getting used to a new neighborhood. Now, Luca works in an international firm. His team includes people from Germany, France, Brazil, and Canada. English is the language they use in most meetings. In the past, he used to stay quiet unless he had something really important to say. He would write down his thoughts first, rehearse them in his head, and speak very carefully. He was afraid of making mistakes. But as his daily routine with English continued, something changed. He began to feel more confident, not because he knew every word, but because English no longer felt foreign. It felt familiar. That daily contact had removed the fear. So in one meeting, when a colleague from Berlin asked for feedback on a presentation, Luca responded naturally. He didn't translate in his head. He just spoke. Simple, clear, direct. And after the meeting, someone said, "Hey, Luca, your English sounds great today." That one comment stayed with him for days. It was a small success, but a powerful one. Luca didn't change his schedule. He didn't add more hours to his day. He just changed how he used a few minutes in the morning. And that created a shift. His brain started to treat English as something normal, not something special or separate from the rest of his life. When that shift happens, speaking becomes easier. Not perfect, but easier. There was one moment he shared with us that really stood out. He had to lead a short presentation for a client from Sweden. Normally, he would have written out his script and memorized it line by line. But this time, he didn't. Instead, he prepared a few notes and practiced the opening out loud. During his usual morning routine. While tying his shoes, he would repeat his introduction. While pouring coffee, he would say a few key phrases. He used the same podcast time, but added his own voice. When the day came, he was a little nervous, but he spoke with clarity. Not fast, not complicated, but clear. The client understood everything. There were a few grammar mistakes, yes, but the message was there. The tone was confident, and he was proud. Not because he sounded like a native speaker, but because he no longer felt blocked. That's what a simple 5-minute habit can do. Luca didn't wait for the perfect course or the perfect moment. He didn't need to finish a textbook or study grammar rules. He just pressed play. And over time, that decision, made again and again each morning, made a real difference. He told us something that I really loved. He said, "English used to feel like homework. Now it feels like part of my morning." That shift in mindset is powerful, because when something feels like homework, we avoid it. But when it becomes part of our rhythm, like brushing our teeth or checking the weather, we stop resisting it. Today, Luca still listens to English in the morning. It's part of who he is. Sometimes he listens to interviews. Other days, it's short stories or audio lessons. And sometimes, when he's feeling tired, he just lets the sound play while he stretches or drinks his coffee. There's no pressure. But there's always contact. That's the key. The beautiful thing about Luca's story is how simple it is. No apps, no schedules, no expensive classes, just a decision to use the time he already had in a new way. That's something anyone can do, no matter how busy their day is. One of the easiest and most effective ways to bring English into your daily life is to attach it to something you already do. Not something extra, not something complicated, just something that's already part of your routine. This technique is simple, but it works because habits are stronger when they are connected to other habits. You don't have to create more time. You just have to link English to moments that already exist in your day. Think about the small things you do automatically. Maybe you make coffee every morning. Maybe you take a short walk after lunch. Maybe you wash the dishes at night, or brush your teeth at the same time every day. These are perfect opportunities to introduce English into your life in a natural, stress-free way. Let's go back to Luca's story for a second. Remember how he started listening to English podcasts while getting ready for work? He didn't change his schedule. He didn't wake up earlier or give up his morning routine. He simply added English to something he already did: brushing his teeth, making breakfast, packing his bag. Those activities didn't require full attention, so he had space in his mind to hear English in the background. That's the power of attaching English to a habit. You're not forcing yourself to study. You're not sitting down with a grammar book and trying to memorize rules. You're just making English a part of something familiar. Over time, this builds consistency, and with consistency comes progress. So, how can you do this? Let's look at some examples. Imagine you start your day with coffee or tea. While the water is heating, or while you're enjoying your drink, that's your moment. Open a short video in English. Listen to a few minutes of a podcast. Read one paragraph of an article. Or even say a few simple sentences out loud. Today is Thursday. I have 2 meetings. The weather looks nice. It doesn't matter if it's short. What matters is that you connect English to that moment. The more you repeat it, the more natural it becomes. If you brush your teeth every morning and evening, and I hope you do, that's another chance. Maybe you won't understand every word with the sound of running water, but your brain still hears the language. That exposure counts. It's like training your ear, even without full concentration. If you play a short English recording during that time every day, your brain starts to associate that habit with the sound of English. And, before you know it, that becomes part of your routine. Another great moment is walking. Many people walk to the bus stop, the train station, or just around the block after lunch or dinner. If that's you, try putting on your headphones and listening to English while you walk. It doesn't have to be a full lesson. It can be a story, an interview, or even a short list of common phrases. The act of walking helps relax your brain, so it becomes easier to receive the language without pressure. What about cooking, washing dishes, folding clothes? These are repetitive actions that don't need much mental focus. That makes them ideal for listening practice. One listener from our community in Rotterdam told me she listens to English every night while preparing dinner for her family. She has 2 kids and a busy job, so she can't sit down to study. But while chopping vegetables and stirring the pot, she listens to a 10-minute podcast. That's her English time. The key idea here is that you already have habits. You already have routines. You don't need to build new ones. You just need to find one that can carry English with it. We call this habit stacking. It means you stack a new behavior, like English practice, on top of a behavior that's already strong in your life. This method removes resistance. You don't have to remember to study. You just do it because it's connected to something else you always do. I want you to take a minute and think about your daily life. What's something you do every single day, without fail? Maybe it's making the bed. Maybe it's checking your calendar. Maybe it's drinking water right after waking up. Pick one of those habits and imagine how English could fit there. Even one sentence, even 1 minute. That's how it begins. Remember, your brain learns through repetition and exposure. The more often you hear English, the more comfortable it becomes. When English becomes part of your regular environment, not just something you study once a week, your progress speeds up. And because you've connected it to a habit you already enjoy, you're much more likely to keep going. 1. Listener from Lisbon shared that she practices English while doing her skincare routine. She has a small mirror speaker, and every evening, while applying moisturizer and brushing her hair, she plays short English dialogues. She said it started as a fun experiment, but now, after 2 months, she realizes she has learned dozens of new expressions. Not because she sat down to memorize them, but because she hears them every single day. That's the magic of habit connection. You don't need pressure. You don't need a schedule. You just need one anchor habit, something stable in your day, and then you attach English to it. It becomes automatic, like part of your environment. Over time, this creates confidence and familiarity. You're not just learning English, you're living with it. When Luca told us about his mornings, what made it powerful was how easy it felt for him. There was no stress, no big plan, just a simple action repeated every day. You can do the same. You can choose one habit, big or small, and start today. Even if it's just a few words while you tie your shoes or listen during your commute. This is how daily practice begins, not with motivation, but with habit. Let me tell you about Anna, a nurse from Warsaw, Poland. She works long shifts in a busy hospital and has very little free time during the day. Her job is demanding, physically and emotionally. Every day she takes care of patients, responds to emergencies, supports her colleagues, and often finishes her shift feeling completely exhausted. Like many people with intense work routines, she always believed that she didn't have time to practice English. She thought learning a language required quiet, uninterrupted hours of study, and she didn't see how that could fit into her life. But something changed one afternoon. It started with a colleague at the hospital who mentioned that she had been listening to audiobooks in another language during her lunch breaks. Anna was curious. She hadn't thought about using that small window of time for anything beyond eating quickly and scrolling through her phone. So, the next day, instead of watching random videos or checking social media, she opened an audiobook app on her phone and searched for something short in English. She chose a short story. Nothing too complex, just a light, everyday topic about a family vacation. It was about 10 minutes long. She put in her headphones, sat by the window in the staff lounge, and listened while eating her sandwich. At first, She didn't catch everything. The speaker's voice was fast, and there were some expressions she didn't recognize. But she stayed with it. She let the story play while she relaxed and took a breath from her hectic shift. That day, something clicked. Even though she didn't understand every word, she noticed she could follow the general idea. She understood that the story was about a mother who forgot to book a hotel, and the family ended up staying in a small cabin by the lake. Anna laughed at the twist, and for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was part of an English conversation, even if she was only listening. So she did it again the next day. A different story, another short audiobook. Sometimes it was fiction. Sometimes it was a real story from someone's life. Over time, she started to hear common phrases repeated. Things like, "I didn't expect that," or "Guess what happened next," or "It was a beautiful morning." These expressions started to feel familiar. She heard them again and again, and little by little, they became part of her own vocabulary. Within a few weeks, Anna noticed a change. She started thinking in English more often. She began recognizing phrases that her hospital's international patients used. Once, a patient from London thanked her and said, "You've been absolutely wonderful." She had heard that phrase in one of the audiobooks. She smiled, not just because she understood it, but because it no longer felt foreign. It felt natural. What made this so powerful wasn't the length of time. Anna wasn't spending hours every day with textbooks or exercises. She only had about 15 to 20 minutes during her lunch break, and even then, she was doing something else, eating, resting, preparing for the next half of her shift. But that simple act of listening became a habit. It became something she looked forward to, and most importantly, it became effective. One afternoon, she shared her experience with a colleague who was also interested in improving her English. They decided to listen to the same audiobook and discuss it briefly at the end of their shift. It became a quiet routine between them, sharing stories, new words, and the funny or surprising parts of what they had listened to. That small act of connection made learning even more enjoyable. I love Anna's story because it shows how flexible language learning can be. You don't need a classroom or a teacher sitting in front of you. You don't need a big block of time. You just need to use what you already have: a break in your day, a phone in your pocket, a willingness to listen. Listening is one of the most powerful ways to absorb a language, especially when you do it consistently. Your brain starts to recognize patterns. You hear how words connect. You begin to feel the rhythm of sentences. And even when your mind is tired, as Anna's often was after hours on her feet, listening still works. It gives your brain a chance to receive the language without pressure. What's also important is that Anna didn't try to understand everything. She wasn't stopping the audio every time she heard something new. She wasn't looking up every word. She just let the story flow. That relaxed attitude helped her stay motivated. Because she wasn't chasing perfection, she was able to enjoy the process. And that enjoyment kept her coming back day after day. She later told me that one of the things she enjoyed most was how much her confidence improved. Not because she was suddenly fluent, but because English stopped feeling like something distant or difficult. It became familiar, comfortable, a part of her day, not just a subject in her mind. That's the beauty of creating small, consistent moments with English. Anna didn't change her schedule. She didn't add more stress to her already full day. She simply turned a quiet break into a chance to listen. That decision changed how she felt about learning. It gave her progress. It gave her joy. And it reminded her that even in the busiest days, there's always space for something meaningful. One of the most powerful ways to bring English into your life is to use the time you usually don't even think about. I'm talking about those short, in-between moments, like waiting in line at the supermarket, sitting on the bus, waiting for your coffee, or standing at the elevator. These little pockets of time are often wasted, but they are perfect opportunities to practice English. Let's be honest, most of us spend more time waiting than we realize. Just think about your day. How much time do you spend waiting for something? To load, standing in traffic, or scrolling through your phone without a clear purpose? What if you used even a part of that time to do something for your English? You don't need a book, a class, or an app. You don't even need headphones. You just need your brain. One of the simplest ways to do this is to think in English. Let's say you're waiting for your train. Instead of thinking about your to-do list in your native language, try switching to English. Start describing what you see. Look around and name things. You might say to yourself, "There's a woman in a red coat. She's reading a book. The train is late today." These are simple sentences, but they help your mind practice the rhythm and structure of English. If you find it hard to think in English, don't worry. It gets easier with time. You can start small, just one sentence. "I'm waiting at the station," then add another. "It's cold this morning." Keep building, and your confidence will grow. The goal isn't to be perfect. The goal is to be present, to use the language actively, even when you're doing something else. Now, maybe you prefer using your phone during those moments. That's fine too. Instead of opening social media, open your Notes app and write a short thought in English. Something like, "Today was a long day," or "I need to buy groceries," after work. These small writing moments can help train your brain to organize ideas in English. And because you're writing for yourself, there's no pressure. Another great way to use waiting time is to review vocabulary. You can keep a short list of words or expressions you're learning and glance at it while waiting. Let's say you're in a long line at the post office. You open your list and see the phrase, "look forward to." Then you try to make a sentence in your head. "I look forward to the weekend." That's already one solid minute of mental practice that would have otherwise been empty time. One thing I always recommend is preparing a small English toolkit on your phone. It could be a folder with short audio clips, flashcards, or mini lessons. Some learners I know download a few episodes of their favorite podcast, short ones maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and listen to them when they're in a waiting room or sitting in traffic. Even if you only listen to part of it, that's better than nothing. Those short exposures to English help build familiarity. They reinforce what you already know, and they keep you connected to the language. Let me give you a quick idea. Imagine you're waiting at the pharmacy. You look around and see a magazine stand. Instead of picking up something in your own language, you think, "How would I describe this place in English?" So, in your mind, you start, "I'm in a small pharmacy. There are many shelves. People are waiting quietly." It becomes like a little English narration in your head. No one hears it, but your brain is working. That is practice. I also want to encourage you to use questions in your head during these moments. Ask yourself something simple, like, "What did I eat for breakfast today?" And answer in English, "I had toast and coffee." Or, "What will I do after work?" And say, "I'll take the bus home and maybe watch a movie." These everyday thoughts are your best material. They don't need to be complicated. they just need to be in English. If you're on public transport, that's a perfect place to practice quietly. Look at the people around you and create little stories in your head. That man is going to work. He looks tired. Maybe he woke up late. This kind of imagination is great for language learners. It keeps your English alive. It helps you form sentences naturally, and it turns boring moments into valuable ones. Some learners feel frustrated because they think they don't have time, but often it's not about finding more time. It's about using the time you already have differently. If you spend 5 minutes a day thinking in English while waiting, just 5 minutes, that adds up to over 2.5 hours a month. And the best part is, it doesn't feel like extra work. So the next time you find yourself waiting, for the microwave to finish, for your friend to arrive, or even for a meeting to start, ask yourself, can I use this moment to practice English? Often the answer is yes, and those moments, repeated every day, can make a huge difference in how comfortable and natural the language feels to you. Let me tell you about someone who found a very simple and surprisingly effective way to improve his English without changing his routine at all. His name is Jonas, and he's a university student from Stockholm. He's studying environmental science, and like many students, he's got a full schedule. Classes during the day, projects at night, and part-time work on weekends. Jonas always wanted to speak English more naturally, but he never felt confident during conversations. He understood grammar rules, and his vocabulary was pretty strong. But when it came to speaking, he often froze or struggled to put words together quickly. One day, after a conversation with a professor who had lived in the UK for many years, Jonas heard something that stuck with him. The professor said, "The way you train your brain to speak better is by using it in small ways all the time." That idea stayed with him, and Jonas started to think about how he could do that. He didn't have time for extra classes or conversation, groups, but he had one resource that was always with him: his own voice. So he began doing something very simple. He started talking to himself, quietly, in English, while doing everyday tasks. When he woke up in the morning, he would say to himself, "Okay, let's get up. I need to brush my teeth, make some breakfast, and get ready for my lecture." He wasn't reading a script. He wasn't practicing a specific grammar rule. He was just saying what he was doing, out loud, in English. At first it felt strange. He even laughed at himself a little. But soon something started to change. He noticed that finding the right words became easier, forming sentences became faster, and more importantly, he started to think in English more naturally. It was like his brain was building a new road, a faster, smoother road, between thoughts and words. Jonas would do this during the most routine activities. While cooking dinner, he would say, "I'm cutting the vegetables now. I need to boil the water. Where did I put the salt?" It wasn't about being perfect. He made mistakes, of course. Sometimes he said things incorrectly or forgot a word. But because he was alone and relaxed, there was no pressure. He could correct himself, or just move on. The goal was fluency, not perfection. This habit became a kind of language gym for his mind. Instead of lifting weights, he was lifting small English sentences, again and again. And just like in a real gym, it didn't take long before he saw results. After a few weeks of doing this, Jonas noticed that during group discussions in his university classes, he felt less nervous when speaking in English. Words came to him more easily. He wasn't translating in his head anymore. He was just speaking. What made it work so well for Jonas was the consistency. He didn't wait for the perfect moment. He didn't need a quiet room or a special app. He used the moments he already had, and he practiced out loud. Washing dishes, taking out the trash, getting dressed, packing his bag, all of these every day, actions became opportunities to speak English. Sometimes he even added a bit of imagination. While walking to class, he would pretend he was giving a short explanation to someone. Today, I'm going to the library to finish my paper on climate change. I've already written the introduction, but I still need to finish the data section. Saying these things out loud helped him prepare for real conversations later. And because he was practicing things that were part of his real life, the vocabulary stayed with him. One of the most powerful parts of this practice was how personal it was. Jonas wasn't copying someone else's phrases or repeating textbook dialogues. He was using his own words, describing his real actions, his real life. That made it more meaningful, and it helped him remember things better. The sentences he practiced were connected to things he cared about and did every day. And here's something interesting. Jonas said that after a while, he didn't always need to speak out loud. Sometimes he would just move his lips, almost like whispering when he was in public. Other times, he would practice silently in his head, but because he had already trained his brain through speaking out loud at home, the habit of forming thoughts in English became automatic. It was like the inner voice in his head had started speaking English too. This simple method turned out to be one of the most helpful things Jonas ever did for his spoken English. It didn't require a lot of time. It didn't cost anything. It didn't even require another person. Just awareness, intention, and a little courage to speak out loud to himself every day. Jonas told me once, "Talking to myself in English helped me realize that I don't need to wait for someone to speak. With me, in order to practice, I can create those moments myself." And he was absolutely right. Sometimes the best practice comes from the small, quiet decisions we make when nobody else is watching. If you're someone who wants to speak English more fluently but feels nervous or unsure when the moment actually comes, I want to share something that can make a big difference. It's simple, it's free, and it's something you can start doing today. Speak aloud when you're alone. That's it. No audience, no judgment, no pressure. Just your voice and your thoughts in English. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, isn't that a little strange? But let me ask you this. Have you ever practiced a presentation by saying it out loud to yourself? Have you ever repeated a phrase a few times to help it stick in your memory? Speaking aloud is a powerful tool, and when you use it in your English practice, it becomes one of the fastest ways to build fluency and confidence. When you speak aloud, you're doing more than just forming sentences. You're training your brain and your mouth to work together. You're building a connection between your thoughts and the words that express them. And this is exactly what we need when we want to feel more natural while speaking. Reading or listening helps you understand English. But speaking, especially out loud, helps you produce it. And that's the part most learners struggle with. One of the biggest benefits of speaking aloud when you're alone is that it removes fear. You don't have to worry about someone correcting you. You don't have to feel embarrassed if you make a mistake. And that freedom is exactly what allows you to experiment, to try new phrases, and to develop your own rhythm. You can repeat a sentence 3 or 4 times if you want to. You can say it slowly or quickly. You can pause, change a word, and say it again. There are no rules. You're in control. So how do you do it? The easiest way to start is by narrating what you're doing. Let's say you're making breakfast. As you prepare your food, just describe your actions in English. I'm boiling. Water. I need 2 eggs. I'm slicing some bread. Where's the butter? It might sound basic, but it's actually incredibly effective. You're practicing the kind of language you would use in everyday life. These are real, useful sentences that help you speak about your daily routine with ease. You can do the same thing while getting ready for the day. Look in the mirror and say, I'm brushing my teeth. I have a meeting this morning. I hope the weather stays nice. Again, there's no need to be perfect. This is not a test. This is your time to practice speaking freely and without pressure. And over time, you'll notice that your brain starts to offer you words more quickly. You won't have to pause and search for basic vocabulary. It will come more naturally because you've already used it, again and again. You can also use this technique to reflect on your day. At night, before going to bed, take a moment to speak aloud about what happened. You could say something like, Today was busy. I went to work, had a long meeting, and then cooked dinner. I felt tired, but it was a good day. This kind of review helps your memory, your grammar, and your ability to tell stories in English. And the more often you do it, the easier it becomes. Another great thing about speaking aloud when you're alone is that it helps you discover where you get stuck. Maybe you don't know how to describe a certain object or action. That's okay. You can make a note of it and look it up later. Over time, this process helps you build the vocabulary you actually need, the words that match your real life and your personal experiences. Some people also like to create imaginary conversations. You can pretend you're ordering food at a restaurant, asking for help at a hotel, or introducing yourself to someone at a conference. You might say, Hi, I'm Maria. I'm from Barcelona. I work in marketing. Nice to meet you. Then imagine what the other person says and respond. These small role plays help you feel more prepared for real situations. And because you're practicing out loud, you get used to hearing your own voice in English, which is something many learners aren't used to at first. I always tell people that fluency is not about speaking fast or knowing thousands of words. It's about being comfortable expressing yourself clearly. And that comfort comes from practice. Not once a week. Not only in class, but every day in small, consistent ways. Speaking aloud when you're alone is one of the easiest and most effective ways to do that. You don't need to set aside a full hour. Start with just a minute or two. Maybe while you're walking to the store. Maybe while folding laundry. Use those quiet moments to say something in English. And if you get stuck, try again. If you make a mistake, keep going. Nobody's listening but you. And something beautiful happens when you do this regularly. You start to hear your own improvement. You begin to trust your voice. And slowly, the fear of speaking in front of others begins to fade. Because you've already practiced. You've already spoken those words. And they're no longer new or scary. So the next time you're alone, whether it's in your kitchen, your car, or your bedroom, try saying something in English out loud. Describe your day, name the things around you, or talk about what you're planning to do next. Give yourself permission to speak, to make mistakes, and to grow. That small habit can make a huge difference in your journey toward fluency. Let me tell you about someone who found a beautifully simple way to make English part of her everyday life. Her name is Elena. She lives in Madrid, works as a marketing manager, and like many of you listening, she has a full, busy schedule. Meetings, deadlines, family time, errands. It often felt like there was no extra space in the day for English. But Elena had a goal. She wanted to feel more comfortable using English, not just for work, but for herself. She wanted to express her thoughts, her feelings, and her ideas without having to pause every few seconds to search for the right words. At first, she tried the usual things. She downloaded apps. She signed up for an online class. But what really made a difference for her was something much smaller. She started keeping what she called her one-sentence-a-day journal in English. That's it. Just one sentence. Every day. The idea came to her on a Sunday evening. She was sitting on her balcony, thinking about the week ahead, when she realized that she always journaled in Spanish. She liked writing about her day, her mood, or what she was looking forward to, and suddenly she thought, what if I did just one sentence in English? Just one. She found a small notebook she hadn't used, wrote the date, and then wrote, "Tomorrow I have an important meeting and I feel a little nervous." That was her first sentence. Nothing complicated. Just a small thought in English. The next day, she did it again. Today the meeting went well. I felt confident speaking in English. Then the next day, I'm tired, but I feel proud of what I accomplished. Some days she wrote about work, other days about her family, her walks in the park, or something funny she saw online. It didn't matter what the sentence was about. The goal wasn't to be perfect. The goal was to keep the habit alive. And that's where the magic happened. Because after a few weeks, Elena noticed something interesting. She was starting to think in English more naturally. During the day, she would catch herself forming little phrases in English in her mind, just like the ones she had written in her journal. She was creating a habit of reflection in English, and even though it was small, it was consistent. That consistency is what made it powerful. Writing just one sentence gave her the freedom to learn without pressure. She didn't feel overwhelmed, and because it only took a minute or two, she didn't have an excuse to skip it. Even on the busiest days, she still wrote something. If she was too tired, she'd write something short, like, "I need rest." If she was feeling excited, she might write, "I can't wait for my weekend trip." Every sentence was a piece of her life told through English, and together they built a stronger connection between her daily thoughts and the language she wanted to master. She also started noticing gaps in her vocabulary. One day she wanted to write about how her boss had given her helpful feedback, but she didn't know how to say feedback in English, so she paused, looked it up, and learned it. The next time she used it, she remembered it right away. That kind of learning is sticky. It stays with you because it's connected to your real experience. After a while, Elena began writing more than one sentence. Sometimes two, sometimes even a small paragraph. But she always kept the pressure low. If she felt tired or uninspired, she just returned to one sentence. That was the rule. One sentence was always enough. She even created a little personal rule that said, "You never fail as long as you write something." That mindset helped her avoid the trap of perfectionism, which is something many learners struggle with. You don't have to write a full essay to make progress. You just have to show up, even for one sentence. What I love about Elena's story is that it reminds us how personal and meaningful language learning can be. This wasn't about studying grammar or memorizing long vocabulary lists. This was about using English to reflect, to feel, and to connect with her own thoughts. And over time, that emotional connection helped her vocabulary grow in a very natural way. She told me that one of her favorite parts of the habit was going back and reading older sentences. She could see her progress in her own handwriting. At the beginning, she said, I had to think very hard about every word. Now it feels much more automatic. My sentences flow. That feeling of fluency didn't come from a big, complicated system. It came from one sentence a day. Another great thing about her journal was that it helped her feel safe. Because it was private, she didn't worry about mistakes. She used it as a space to explore. If she wasn't sure about a word or phrase, she just gave it a try. She wasn't writing for a teacher or a test. She was writing for herself. That freedom gave her confidence, and that confidence slowly moved into other parts of her life. In meetings with international clients, she started speaking more. On video calls, she stopped apologizing for her English, and when she traveled to London for a short conference, she actually felt excited to use the language in real situations. It all started with that tiny habit. One sentence, 1 minute. Every day. Over time, it became more than just a language exercise. It became part of her self-care, a way to slow down and reflect while also building a skill. She told me that it helped her feel proud of herself, and that pride became fuel for other goals. So if you're listening and thinking, I don't have time for big changes, maybe Elena's story gives you a new way to look at things. You don't need a full hour to make progress. You don't even need 10 minutes. You just need a sentence, a moment of focus, a small habit that belongs only to you. Something you can do before bed, during your coffee break, or even while waiting for the bus. I want to share with you a simple but powerful tip that can make a big difference in your English practice. Keep a simple English journal. You might be thinking, but Emma, I don't have time to write long entries every day. And I get it. Life gets busy, and sometimes writing in a journal can feel like a big commitment. But the great thing about keeping a simple journal is that it doesn't have to be time-consuming or complicated. In fact, the simpler it is, the better. A simple English journal is all about consistency, not perfection. It's about capturing your thoughts, feelings, or experiences in short, clear sentences. The goal isn't to write essays or impress anyone. It's to create a habit that helps you think in English every day. And just like any other habit, the more you do it, the easier it gets. When you start writing in a journal, it can feel intimidating at first. After all, you're putting your thoughts into another language. But this is actually one of the most effective ways to improve your fluency. Writing in English forces you to process your thoughts in English. It's not just about knowing vocabulary or grammar rules. It's about using the language to express yourself, to organize your ideas, and to build confidence in how you communicate. Now, let's talk about how to keep it simple. The key is to focus on short, direct sentences. You don't need to worry about making everything perfect. In fact, the less you focus on perfection, the better. A simple sentence can be as effective as a longer one. It's better to write something small and clear than to spend hours crafting a complicated entry that leaves you feeling frustrated. For example, you could write something like, "Today I felt tired after work," or "I enjoyed the coffee I had this morning." Notice how easy that is. There's no need to use complex grammar or fancy words. Just describe your day, your emotions, or what's happening around you. The important thing is that you're practicing English, even if it's just for a minute or two. When you get into the habit of writing in simple sentences, you'll start to notice patterns in your writing. You'll see which words or phrases you use most often, and you can focus on expanding your vocabulary in those areas. If you find yourself using the same expression over and over, try to switch it up. For instance, if you often write, "I feel tired," try, "I feel exhausted," or "I'm really low on energy today." This helps you learn new vocabulary without having to study lists of words. A simple English journal is also a great way to reflect on your learning progress. It's a personal space where you can record your thoughts and see how much you've grown over time. Maybe a few weeks ago you were struggling to write even a simple sentence, but now you're able to describe your day more naturally. That's progress. And when you read back over your journal entries, you'll realize how far you've come. But don't just use your journal for writing about what happened. Use it to reflect on your learning. For example, if you learned a new word or phrase during the day, write it down in your journal. You can even use your journal to write about your goals for the week. This week, I want to learn 10 new words, or I want to practice speaking English for 15 minutes every day. By keeping track of your goals and progress, you'll stay motivated and focused on improving your English. Here's another tip. Don't worry about writing a perfect entry every day. It's completely okay to have days when you don't feel like writing, or when you're not sure what to say. Just write whatever comes to mind. The important part is the habit, not the quantity or quality of what you write. And if you're feeling stuck, you can use prompts to guide your writing. For example, you could ask yourself questions like, "What did I learn today?" Or, "How do I feel right now?" These simple prompts can help you get started when you don't know what to write. Also, don't stress about grammar. I'm sure you've heard this before, but it's important to remember that your journal is for you. It's not about impressing anyone. It's about practicing and getting better. If you make mistakes, that's okay. The more you write, the more you'll notice your mistakes, and the more you'll learn from them. Mistakes are part of the process. They're just stepping stones toward improvement. I've seen how this simple practice can transform the way people approach language learning. One of the most powerful things about keeping a journal is that it helps you get into the habit of thinking in English. And when you start thinking in English, you stop translating everything in your head from your native language. That's when real fluency starts to happen. You're no longer just memorizing words. You're living in the language. And that's exactly what you want to achieve. Another great thing about a simple English journal is that it's flexible. You can write about anything you want. You can write about what happened at work, a movie you watched, a conversation you had, or even your favorite book. Writing about topics that interest you will keep you engaged and make the practice feel more natural. The more you enjoy the process, the more likely you are to stick with it. Now, if you want to take your journal a step further, try speaking your entries out loud. This helps reinforce what you've written and also improves your speaking skills. You don't have to read your journal entries like a speech, but saying them aloud will give you more confidence in using English in real-life situations. So, whether you're just starting out or you've been learning English for a while, keeping a simple journal is a great way to build your skills. It's a small habit that can have a big impact. And remember, you don't need to write for hours. Even just a few sentences every day will make a difference over time. Consistency is key. You'll start seeing improvement in your vocabulary, grammar, and overall fluency. And most importantly, you'll feel more confident using English in your everyday life. The best part? You can start today, right now. No fancy tools, no special equipment, just you, a notebook, and a pen. So, grab that pen and start writing. You'll be amazed at how much you can learn and grow with just a simple English journal. Noah is a chef from Dublin, and his story is one that truly shows how small, consistent actions can lead to significant progress in language learning. Like many people, Noah had a busy schedule. His work as a chef demanded long hours in the kitchen, and after those hours, he was often too tired to focus on anything else. However, one of Noah's most important routines was walking his dog, Max. Max was his companion, and those walks were his time to relax, clear his head, and get a bit of fresh air after a day of cooking. At first, Noah didn't think about using his walks with Max as an opportunity to practice his English. But over time, he realized something important. During those walks, he had no one else to talk to. He was walking alone with Max, so why not talk to him in English? It started as something small, just a way to fill the silence, but over time, it became a habit. Noah would speak to Max, describing what was happening around him, telling Max about his day, and even asking questions like, "What do you think of the weather today?" Or, "Are you excited for our walk?" It wasn't much at first, just a few simple phrases here and there. But as Noah kept talking to Max, he started to notice something. He felt more comfortable speaking English, even when no one was around. Speaking to his dog gave him the confidence to express himself more naturally in English. When Noah spoke, he didn't worry about making mistakes, because Max wasn't going to judge him. This made Noah feel freer to speak more often, and over time, he became more fluent. He realized that the more he spoke out loud, even if it was just to his dog, the more natural it felt. This experience was a game changer for Noah. At first, he had been self-conscious about speaking English, especially when it came to having conversations with people. He feared making mistakes and being misunderstood. But through his daily walks with Max, he began to let go of that fear. Talking to his dog was a safe space for him to practice. Noah could speak without any pressure, and he didn't have to worry about grammar or pronunciation at that moment. All that mattered was that he was practicing and gaining confidence. Now, you might be wondering, how does this apply to you? Well, Noah's story shows that sometimes the best way to practice a language is in an informal, relaxed setting. It doesn't always have to be in a classroom or with a language partner. You can practice English anytime, anywhere, even during a walk with your dog, just like Noah did. The key is to find a moment in your day where you can comfortably speak the language. This doesn't have to be an intense session of studying. It can simply be a casual conversation with your pet, your reflection in the mirror, or even talking to yourself while doing a task. The important part is making it part of your routine, and gradually, you'll notice your confidence and fluency improve. Another aspect of Noah's story is that he didn't start out by trying to speak long, complicated sentences. He began with simple phrases, talking about his surroundings or how he was feeling. "It's chilly today, Max," or "We're almost at the park." These small sentences helped him build his confidence, and with time, they evolved into longer and more complex thoughts. The best part about Noah's approach is that he didn't need any special tools or resources, just his dog and a bit of time. It's proof that you can practice English anywhere, as long as you're willing to speak, even if you're just talking to your pet. Noah's story also highlights a valuable lesson. It's okay to make mistakes. In fact, making mistakes is a crucial part of the learning process. When you talk to a dog, or even just speak to yourself, there's no pressure to be perfect. This lack of pressure is what allowed Noah to feel more comfortable using English. The more relaxed you are, the more natural your speech becomes. By practicing in an environment where you don't feel judged, you give yourself the freedom to experiment with the language. This kind of low-pressure practice is essential for gaining fluency. Over time, you'll find that speaking English starts to feel more automatic, and your ability to think in the language will improve as well. One of the most remarkable things about Noah's approach is that it didn't require much extra time. He was already walking his dog every day, so he simply added speaking in English to that routine. This is another important takeaway. You don't have to carve out extra time in your day to practice. You can incorporate language learning into the activities you already do. If you walk your dog, cook dinner, or even commute to work, those are all opportunities to practice English. The trick is to find moments where you can easily integrate English into what you're already doing. It's also worth noting that Noah's practice wasn't just about speaking, it was about listening to himself as well. By speaking English out loud, he got used to hearing his own voice in the language. This is a great way to train your ear and build your language skills. As you practice speaking and listening, your brain starts to associate the sounds of English with meaning, which is essential for fluency. So, even if you're just talking to your dog, you're still training your brain to process English more naturally. And let's not forget the importance of consistency. Noah didn't just talk to Max for a few days and then stop. He made it a regular part of his life, and that regular practice helped him improve steadily. This is the key to language learning, consistency over time. Whether it's talking to your dog, speaking to yourself, or chatting with a friend, the more you do it, the better you'll get. Noah's story is a great example of how practicing English doesn't always have to be serious or formal. It can be as simple as talking to your dog, a habit you already have, and turning it into an opportunity to practice the language. By doing this, you'll start to feel more comfortable and confident when you speak English, and you might even find that you enjoy it more. Just like Noah, you might realize that speaking English is not as hard as it seems, especially when you take the pressure off and let yourself practice in a relaxed way. Learning English is a journey, and one of the most important things I want to emphasize in this episode is that practicing the language does not need to come with pressure. Many learners, especially those starting out or trying to improve their skills, often feel that they need to speak perfectly, or that every sentence must be grammatically correct. But I'm here to tell you that this isn't the best approach, and it's not necessary for success in learning English. In fact, the pressure to be perfect can sometimes slow you down and make you feel stuck. The first thing to understand is that language learning is not a race. You don't need to be fluent in a month or speak without mistakes. The most important thing is to get started and keep going, even if your sentences aren't always perfect. Perfection isn't the goal. The goal is communication. The more you practice, the more natural the language will feel, and the better you'll get at expressing yourself. This is a lesson I've learned from countless learners I've worked with, and I want to share it with you. You see, when you focus too much on getting everything right, it can make the process feel more like a chore rather than something enjoyable and rewarding. It can cause anxiety, and that stress can actually make it harder for you to absorb the language. It's important to realize that making mistakes is an essential part of learning. In fact, it's when we make mistakes that we often learn the most. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, but Emma, I don't want to sound bad or make mistakes when speaking to others. I get it. It's natural to want to make a good impression. But think about it. How did you learn your first language? You didn't worry about grammar or pronunciation in the beginning. You simply spoke. You learned by trial and error, by listening to the people around you, and by practicing as much as you could. Language learning as an adult may feel different, because we tend to be more self-conscious about making mistakes. But I promise you that making mistakes is the way forward. In fact, it's through mistakes that you build your fluency and confidence. To practice without pressure, it's important to let go of the need to be perfect. Start small, and don't worry if you stumble over words or if your grammar isn't 100% accurate. The more you practice, the more your confidence will grow. Think about it like learning to ride a bike. At first, you might wobble and even fall a few times. But the more you practice, the more steady and confident you become. Language works the same way. If you keep practicing, even if you don't feel completely confident, it will start to feel more natural over time. Another thing that can help reduce pressure is to focus on clarity over perfection. It's much more important to communicate your ideas clearly than to get every word right. Think of this. You've probably spoken to people who aren't native speakers of your language, and you've understood them perfectly, even though they might have made a few mistakes. The same goes for you when you speak English. People aren't judging you on your grammar. They're listening to what you're saying. If you can express yourself clearly, even if your language isn't perfect, you're already doing great. To give you an example, I'd like to share the story of a student I worked with a few years ago. His name was Pedro, and he was from Brazil. He had been learning English for a while, but always felt embarrassed speaking because he was afraid of making mistakes. He would often avoid speaking because he didn't want to sound bad. His biggest fear was making errors when talking to native speakers, but I encouraged him to let go of that fear and start speaking, even if he made mistakes. I told him that the key wasn't to be perfect, but to practice regularly and focus on communicating his ideas. At first, Pedro found it difficult to speak without worrying about his mistakes. But after a few weeks of practicing regularly, he began to gain more confidence. He would try to speak with native speakers, and when he made mistakes, he didn't let it stop him. Instead of thinking, "I made a mistake, I'm not good enough," he started thinking, "I made a mistake, but I still communicated my idea and I'll learn from it." Over time, his fluency improved, and he stopped worrying so much about making mistakes. He focused on expressing himself clearly, and that made all the difference. So how can you start practicing without pressure? One of the best things you can do is set small, achievable goals. Start by speaking English for just a few minutes each day. This could be as simple as narrating what you're doing as you go about your day, or practicing a conversation with a friend. Don't worry about making mistakes. Focus on getting your ideas across and enjoying the process. The more you practice, the easier it will become, and the less pressure you'll feel. Another helpful strategy is to remind yourself that English is a tool for communication. It's not about impressing people with your grammar or vocabulary. It's about connecting with others and sharing your thoughts. When you shift your focus from perfection to communication, you'll find that speaking English becomes a lot less stressful. If you make a mistake, don't be hard on yourself. Instead, use it as an opportunity to learn. Ask yourself, what went wrong? How can I improve next time? This mindset of self-reflection and improvement is what will truly help you grow in your language skills. Another tip is to surround yourself with supportive people. Find people who encourage you to speak, even if you're not perfect. You can find language partners, join online communities, or even talk to friends who are also learning English. These people can help create a positive environment where you feel comfortable making mistakes and growing. Finally, give yourself permission to take breaks. Learning a language can be overwhelming at times, and you don't have to practice every single day for hours. Even a few minutes of practice each day can make a big difference over time. What's important is consistency, not perfection. Remember, language learning is a journey, and there's no need to rush it. Practice without pressure, focus on communicating clearly, and enjoy the process. With time, you'll find that English becomes more natural and enjoyable. So, relax and let the language come to you as we continue our journey toward improving your English. I want to take a moment for reflection. I know that life can be busy, and sometimes it feels like there are not enough hours in the day to focus on something like language learning. But here's the thing. The time is there. It's just a matter of how we choose to use it. So, let's pause for a minute and think about the little moments in your daily routine where you could actually include English. Do you ever find yourself waiting, in line at the grocery store or sitting on the bus? Perhaps scrolling through your phone? What about those brief pauses during the day when you're between tasks, maybe after finishing your breakfast, or while having a cup of coffee? These moments, small as they may seem, can actually be great opportunities to practice English. Take a moment to think about what you already do during the day that could be paired with English practice. For example, you might already have a routine that includes listening to music, watching TV shows, or even taking a walk. Now, imagine incorporating some English into those routines. It doesn't have to be complicated. It could be listening to a podcast in English while you take your morning walk, practicing some phrases while making breakfast, or writing a few sentences in English during your lunch break. These are all small changes, but the impact over time can be significant. And this is one of the keys to making English practice a natural part of your day. You don't need to find an extra hour in your day. You just need to connect English to something you already do. When you start thinking about all the opportunities that are already available to you, you'll realize that it's easier than you think to fit some practice into your routine. So, I'd like to challenge you. Think about what you do every day that could include English. Whether it's while commuting to work, cooking dinner, or during your lunch break, pick one part of your day where you can start applying English. It could be something simple, like reading a short article in English, repeating phrases from a podcast you've been listening to, or even practicing a new word or expression you've learned. The key is to choose something achievable, something that fits easily into your current routine. The goal is not to add stress, but to make this practice feel as natural as possible. If you're not sure where to start, I'll help you with some suggestions. For example, if you're already a fan of listening to podcasts or audiobooks, try switching to something in English for just 10 or 15 minutes a day. If you have a moment while preparing your meal, why not try saying the names of ingredients or steps in English? If you like journaling, consider writing a few sentences each day about your feelings or your plans in English. The possibilities are endless, but the most important thing is to start small and stay consistent. Remember that every little step counts. You don't need to dedicate hours to practice. In fact, those little moments of practice add up over time and can help you improve your fluency more effectively than long, intense study sessions. So, my challenge for you today is this. Pick one tip or strategy that we've discussed in this episode and apply it today. It could be something as simple as speaking out loud while you do your chores, or listening to an English podcast while you're on your way to work. Whatever it is, I want you to commit to it and see how it feels. You may be surprised by how easily you can incorporate English into your day. Let's break it down further. You don't need to overthink this. Just take one tip and think about how it fits into your routine. If you've chosen to speak out loud when you're alone, for example, start by describing what you're doing. It's not about speaking perfectly. It's about getting comfortable with using English in your day-to-day life. If you've decided to keep an English journal, write just one sentence today. Nothing too long or complicated. Just a reflection of your day or something you learned. Reflecting on how you already use your time can open up many possibilities for English practice. Maybe you've never considered the small moments as opportunities, but now that we've talked about it, you'll start to notice them everywhere. Whether you're waiting for a friend to arrive or taking a break at work, these are perfect opportunities to practice. The best part is that no one needs to know. You can practice in a way that fits naturally into your life, and it won't feel like extra work. The next step is to make this challenge actionable. After you choose your tip, commit to it for 1 week. By the end of the week, check in with yourself and see how you feel. Has it made a difference in how comfortable you feel using English? Do you notice more confidence in speaking, writing, or understanding? You don't need to make a huge leap right away, but the consistency of small actions will help build momentum. Over time, you'll notice that these little practices have added up to significant progress. Remember, it's not about doing everything at once. The goal is to focus on one thing at a time and build from there. When you reflect on your daily habits, you'll discover that there are many opportunities to practice, even in the most ordinary parts of your day. It's all about making English a natural part of your routine, so you don't have to feel like you're fitting it in as an extra task. It should become second nature. So, here's the challenge once again. Choose one tip from this episode and apply it today. Maybe it's speaking aloud when you're doing something around the house or listening to an English podcast during your commute. Whatever it is, start small and make it a habit. After a week, reflect on how it went. How does it feel to incorporate English into your daily routine? I'm sure you'll find that, little by little, your confidence will grow and your skills will improve. Let me know how it goes. I'd love to hear about your progress and how you're challenging yourself to practice English every day. Let's continue this journey together, one small step at a time. As we approach the end of this episode, I just want to take a moment to thank you for joining me today. I know that your time is precious, and I truly appreciate that you've chosen to spend it with me here, working towards improving your English. I hope that the ideas and tips shared today have given you some valuable tools that you can start using right away. Remember, learning a language doesn't happen overnight. It's not about spending hours each day studying grammar rules or memorizing long lists of vocabulary. The key to progress is consistency. By incorporating small, manageable actions into your daily life, you'll gradually build a stronger foundation in English. It's the little things that add up over time, whether that's listening to a podcast during your commute, speaking aloud while doing household chores, or jotting down a sentence in your journal each day. These actions may seem small, but over time, they make a big difference in your fluency. You don't need to pressure yourself into perfection. Language learning is a journey, not a race. The goal is to make progress, not to get everything perfect right away. So if you feel like you're not getting it right at first, that's completely normal. Don't worry about making mistakes. Embrace them as part of the process. Every mistake you make is a step forward because it means you're actively engaging with the language and learning from the experience. I encourage you to take a moment now and think about how you can apply what we've discussed today in your own life. What small action can you start with? Maybe it's choosing one tip from today's episode and committing to it for the next week. Maybe it's finding one part of your daily routine where you can practice English, even if it's just for 5 minutes a day. Whatever it is, I want you to take that first step today. And while you're reflecting on this, I'd love to hear from you. What are you putting into practice from this episode? How are you incorporating English into your daily life? It's always inspiring to hear about your experiences, and I believe that sharing your progress not only keeps you motivated, but also helps others who are on a similar path. So, feel free to reach out and share your journey with me. Your experiences could be the spark that motivates someone else to take that next step in their learning. Of course, we'll continue to explore more ways to help you improve your English, so don't forget to tune in to the next episode. There are plenty more tips, stories, and strategies ahead that will help you on this journey. Remember, even if it feels like you're too busy or life is getting in the way, there's always time to practice. It's just a matter of using those small moments in your day to your advantage. As you go about your week, I want you to keep in mind that the more consistent you are, the more progress you'll see. It's not about doing everything all at once or trying to fit in long study sessions every day. It's about finding ways to incorporate English into the fabric of your daily life. Little by little, you'll find that your confidence will grow, and your ability to use English will become more natural. So, before we wrap up, I just want to remind you that you're doing great. Keep going, and don't be too hard on yourself. Celebrate the small wins and take it one step at a time. And if you ever feel like you need more support or inspiration, you know where to find me. I'm here to guide you along the way, and I'm rooting for your success. Thank you once again for being a part of today's episode. I can't wait to hear about your progress and see what new habits you're building. Take care, stay consistent, and keep practicing every day. I'll be right here, ready to share more tips and stories to help you continue improving your English. Don't forget to listen to the next episode, and until then, keep making those small, powerful steps forward.